creating custom Zoom backgrounds with slides. Now, we're not going to get into real elaborate graphics, but it's surprising what you can do with just a few simple steps in some of the common slide applications that are out there. Okay, so a couple of things about preparing your virtual background for Zoom is that PowerPoint and Google Slides and Apple Keynote are software applications that run on computers, and Keynote is the only one that you can't use on a Windows PC. It only works on Apple products. You can use PowerPoint on other products. You can use on Apple, on Mac, on Android. You can use it there, but it's not free. It requires a purchase or subscription. Now, and Google Slides is free with Google, so that's one of the interesting things about that. All of these slide presentation tools give you an option to create a slide in what's called a widescreen aspect ratio. Okay, it's a 16:9 ratio. I have missed a typo here on ratio. I saw that. What it is if you have a 1080p or widescreen ratio, your image is wider than it is tall. And you might remember older tube style television sets. They used what was called a 4:3 ratio. They were 4 times as wide and 3 times tall. The 16:9 is what high definition is and what most everything is these days, more and more. When you watch Netflix or you watch TV or you look at almost anything, it's done in widescreen. So Zoom backgrounds are 16:9. They're widescreen backgrounds. So that's an important thing to remember for you, because some of the slide tools give you the option to create a standard or a widescreen, and we're going to create everything in widescreen. Google Slides and Apple Keynote and Microsoft PowerPoint are all slide presentation tools. They let you create a visual. I'm displaying a slide right now that has a background, and it has a image of Google Slides, an image of Apple Keynote's logo, and an image of Microsoft PowerPoint. These are icons that I got and copied and pasted onto this slide, but this is a slide. So it gives people a way to go through material, and that's generally what they use it is for presenting. Like the Keynote logo shows people are typically at a podium or in front of a group or in front of a room presenting, but they can do a lot of other things. You can create images with these slide tools as well, and I'll show you how to do that. I recommend a simpler background than a more complicated background. This is actually a photo. I went to the last year's, well, 2 years ago now, Rose Parade, and the colors and the floats live in person, they're just fantastic, right? But they're really, really dense images, and something like your logo or some text might not show up very well against a busy background. Whereas in a simpler background, something might show up easier, and you can put other images on your slide or a text or other graphics. And so if you want them to stand out, keep in mind that a simpler background sometimes works better than a more complicated background. But you can use any image or photo, and even you can use templates. A lot of these slide tools, and maybe that's something we'll get into in a future class, is take a look at doing some things in PowerPoint and Google Slides with templates. Now, as you know, when you're on Zoom, you're generally in the center of the image, wherever your camera is. Now you can move to the side one way or the other, but generally you want to sit directly in front of the camera. And so the area where your what's called headshot or profile appears is going to take up roughly about 1/3 of the image. And so it's best to use the upper left or upper right or lower left or lower right. And a really good training guide for getting a sense of this is watching newscasters on TV. News better than weather. I mean, weathercasters are designed to stand to the side and point, to a big graphic. But a newscaster that's in the center of the screen, you'll generally see they might have a text scrolling on the bottom. They might have a logo for the channel or something like that. So generally they have these things in the upper left, upper right. Those are the best choices. And then lower left or lower right is another area. And you don't want to distract too much from what you're presenting or what you're showing. Now, when you're recording a Zoom presentation, the sharing area is what's most prominent, but in the recording, it'll show you a little headshot over to the upper right corner. So you can play that back in the recording too. Now, the other thing is that in order to take this slide that you create in PowerPoint or Google Slides or Keynote and get it into Zoom, you have to save your slide as a JPEG or JPG. This is a type of graphics file, and that's what Zoom wants. And so when you go to, this is a screenshot from PowerPoint where you go to File, well, actually, this is Google Slides. I'm sorry. When you go to File, you can download a slide or a whole presentation. You can download it as what's called a JPEG image. You can also use PNG, but JPEG always works with Zoom, and so I recommend that. PowerPoint and Keynote and Google Slides lets you export or download any one slide or any presentation as graphics files so that people that have applications like Zoom that want to import them can import them as a JPEG file. And you don't have to know anything about JPEG or how it works. You just have to know when you go to File and Export or Download. Microsoft PowerPoint and Apple Keynote use export instead of download, I think. And so we'll take a look at that. But sometimes it might say download, sometimes it might say export. I've got a window open here, and you should be able to see my Google logo here. Everybody see that in my browser? Okay. So when you have a Google account, Google accounts are free. And when you log into your Google account, you'll see a little icon up in your web browser. If you go to google.com, then you see these little set of nine images, nine buttons here, and that actually opens up your Google apps. Google gives you a lot of free apps with your Google account. One of the things they give you is slides. So if I click on slides, this is all done through a web browser. It gives you the ability to open up a new presentation. So I'm going to start a blank new presentation. I don't need anything else. However, they do have a lot of templates with backgrounds that you can use if you want to. So if you like one of their backgrounds, that's fine. But I'm going to open up a blank presentation because I don't need anything else. Now, Google does have these themes. So if you want a particular background or particular color scheme, they give you this with the free account. So you can use one of these. But I'm just going to use something blank here, okay? I don't really need that theme. And what I want to do is I want to basically just use a blank presentation. So I'll go to Layout and I'll go to Blank. Now, you can leave the text on there if you want to. It's not going to matter, and you can just delete each of these. This is a point and click type of application. Now, where am I going to get an image? Okay, so I have a blank slide. That's not a good start for a background. So one of the things I want to go to is I want to go to Insert, and I want to see if I can insert an image. Okay, so I can insert an image. I can upload it from the computer if I have it here, or I can search the web, or I can access my Google Drive. So I'm going to search the web here. Google gives you the ability to search for images. So let's say if I want to find a mountain, okay, I want to find mountains. Google will search for images that you are allowed to use for mountains or cats or dogs or holidays or birthday cakes or whatever you want to. This is a good enough mountain for me. So I'm going to click on that and I click on it. And then at the bottom, I see this thing called insert. So now it's got an image here. Now it doesn't cover the whole slide. So what I do is I grab these corners here and I make it bigger so that it covers everything up, okay? And it'll cut off the other portions of it. Don't worry about it. So that's my image. Now, if I want to add some text to it, I can go up here, and all these slide presentations have a way you can enter text. So I want to create a text box. So I highlight the text icon and I tap here and I can say, this is my custom background. Now, if I want to make the text bigger, I have editing tools here. I can make it larger. If I want to change the color, but I'm going to use this. This is okay. And I'm going to remember my rule. I wanted to have something in the upper left. I can do that. Okay. So there we go. So I've got a custom background, and I probably want to lower this a little bit just because my image is bigger here, and we'll see how that works. Okay. So now I've got a photo I found from Google by using insert photos, and I found it on the web. Google helped me find it by searching right within the slides application. I didn't have to leave this at all. So if I go now to file, I will file and I will download it as a JPEG file. And it's downloaded it to my download folder here. So it goes to my downloads, and I'm going to drag it out here. So here's the untitled, it's called untitled presentation. I'm going to give it a name just by clicking it, and I'll call Google slide background. Okay. And that's all free. It's all available to you. Now, I'm going to create one with PowerPoint too. Okay. So let me pause for a second and see what kinds of questions we have about this at this point. So I now have a JPEG file with a Google slide background here that I can use in my for my Zoom background without any other work. That's done. I just have to get it into Zoom. We're going to do that in a minute. Google Slides, we did something here, and we're going to just minimize this. Now I'm going to open up PowerPoint. Okay, some of you use PowerPoint. This is the current version of PowerPoint. Let me make this bigger for us. And when you open up PowerPoint, it might take you to the home. It might take you to new. But what you want to look for is a blank presentation. Now, PowerPoint does have a lot of templates. And if you wanted a background, like say this one, you could just select this as your background, and that would be your background for your virtual background. And you don't have to make any changes to it. But I'm going to open up a blank one because I want to show you similarly how it works in all the applications. I'll double click this, and it opens up a new presentation. Now, if you notice, this really isn't 16 by 9. PowerPoint still brings up a 4 by 3 ratio typically. So I have to go and change this first thing. I want to do that. And in PowerPoint, the step here called design brings up templates. And like say, I could use a chalkboard as a background and I wouldn't have to do anything, but I'm just going to use a blank one here. So you can use these backgrounds they give you all over, but I want to change the slide size here by going to design and then slide size. And this is where I change it to widescreen. And do I want to scale the content up? Yeah, I do. I don't have anything on there right now. So you can see now it put it in a widescreen format right away. Okay, so now if I go to insert, it's kind of nice that a lot of them use the same terminology, insert. Okay, so I can go to insert and I go to pictures. Now I can also insert shapes or text or other things here or word art. PowerPoint gives you probably the most tools for doing these things. But I'm going to go to picture, and in the picture options, I can go to photo browser. That means it's going to let me browse my photo files on my computer or other places. I can go to picture from file. If I know the file location, I can go to stock images, or I can go to online pictures. So I think stock images might bring up some things like clip art and other things. So here's stock images that Microsoft makes available in PowerPoint. And there's a lot of them. So if I need an image of some flowers here, I can click on that. If I want to look at icons, here's some of their clip art icons that they have as well. But these are all included with PowerPoint. I don't have to do anything else other than click these. Here's a lemon. Okay, we'll take a lemon. Let's see, let me unclick that. Because if you click it, you can insert more than one at a time. Here's a building, here's a clock. Keep in mind that a more simpler background sometimes work better. Here's a nice color graphic as well. But we're going to insert this one background that I chose. It's flowers, okay? Now, again, the image is different. So I want to adjust the size here so it takes up the whole slide, and I can use that. Now, if I want to add my logo, one of the things I did is I have a file folder, a file here on my desktop with my logo. And one of the nice things about PowerPoint and Keynote and some other of these tools is that they have the ability where you can drag and drop images into place. So if I wanted to add a logo, I can do it that way. Or I could go to Insert File, and I can put my logo in the upper right-hand corner here and just resize it this way. And it shows up in the upper right-hand corner. And so if I wanted to add text, I would go to Insert, and here's a text I would insert, and I would say, this is done with PowerPoint. Okay, and we'll move it over. We'll put this one down towards the bottom somewhere. We just drag, whoop, we don't want to drag the image. We want to grab the graphics there. So we'll drag that and we'll put this down in the lower right here, okay? So now I've got a background, or I could have a plain background, or I could just use a simple color background. And maybe we'll do something with PowerPoint because a lot of people use it, and it's really got a lot of powerful graphic editing options on it as well. So I want to save this. So I'm going to go to File, Save, and so I'm going to give it a name, and I'll call it PowerPoint Virtual Background. And I'm going to export it somehow. So I can go to Home, but the commands in your menu are typically up on top. So I will go to File, and I want to export this. Now, when I go to export, I'm given some options. I could export it as a PowerPoint file. I could export it as a, let's see if I can find my desktop here, if I can find where that is located here. Let's go to Bob's MacBook Pro, users, and let's see if we can find desktop. There we go. I can export this and a lot of things. You can actually create animations in PowerPoint and do other types of things. But I'm going to save this again as a JPEG file. Okay, I only have one file, and it's given me a different width here, but that's okay. It should be all right for me because I started out with a widescreen format. And I'm going to export this, and it show up as my desktop here. Okay, so here's my PowerPoint virtual background, and there's my slide as a graphic as opposed to another image. Now it cut off a little bit at the bottom because my graphic is bigger than the actual slide. So I'm going to move this up. I'm just going to move this down a little bit just for fun, and I'm going to export it again just for fun, and it just replaces it a little bit here. There's my users. Let's see, we should go to desktop. I wonder why desktop doesn't show up that well for some reason. There we go. There's my desktop, and I'll export it, and it's over here now. Okay. So I exported it as a PDF. Can't do that. Got to export it as a JPEG. Even I forget to do that. Okay. So we're going to go find desktop and JPEG and export. Okay. And I'm going to replace what I had there before. Okay. So now it's saved as a JPEG file. So PowerPoint's a really powerful application, gives you a lot of capabilities to do things. One of the things that Keynote doesn't do as much is Keynote doesn't necessarily give you access to a lot of different graphics. So I'm going to create a new document in Keynote, and Keynote, however, has a lot of templates. So here's templates that exist in Keynote. And if you like any of these backgrounds or color schemes or anything, they're part of Keynote. They're included with it. And they actually have quite a few other ones here. So if we wanted to take a chalkboard one, we could do that. Or we could just go with a basic blank one, basic white here. Say, we're going to create this. Now you notice most of them are wide, but this is where you can select wide or standard in Keynote. So we'll click a wide one here, and we've got a blank slide. I'm going to format it. I'm going to change the master to a totally blank one. I don't need anything else. So that's how Keynote works. They all have a little bit different subtle variations there. So if I want to insert a photo or gallery or something else, I can find it, but typically Keynote doesn't have its own gallery of images that you select from. So unlike PowerPoint or Google Slides, it doesn't really have anything. So I'm going to just delete that. But on my desktop, I do have a JPEG image of the Rose Parade. So I'm going to bring that one in, and it's going to insert it here. I'm going to move it around, and I'm going to make it bigger so it fills the whole width of the image of the screen here. So this is my Rose Parade image here. Okay, so if I want to type in some text, I can insert text here, and let me change something here. I'm sorry. Okay, let me go to text, and usually it lets me insert it. I'm not sure why. Oh, I see why. Why it's not doing that. Okay. Okay, so if I type in, oh, there it is. Okay, so it's already been doing it several times. So you can see why a busy background does get to be troublesome. Okay, so if I want to see where this is, and I want to make it bigger and larger, let me go to changing the size of this and make it really big so it's easier to see, and type in my D there, okay? Oops. Keynote, okay. So now I have my background, my here. I'm going to change the color so it's a little easier to see, to maybe white, okay? Because that stands out a little bit easier for me, okay? So those are some things that will help. Now I can drag my logo over again, like I did with other tools, and I can size it. What Miriam was talking about is if I take the horizontal and I push this, sometimes it'll keep the proportions, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on some of the settings used, but you see it's not really, that logo is not really that visible here as well as you'd like it. But it's okay. So now I have a image with some text on it, the logo. I again go to File, Export, and I want to export this as an image, okay? And the image is JPEG automatically in PowerPoint, and it'll ask me where I want to put it. I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm going to say Keynote background, okay? And we'll export that. And it ended up on my desktop, okay? So that's how you do it in Keynote. Okay, they're all very similar. They all just have a little bit different backgrounds and approaches to doing it. So it's more a matter of which one you have available to you and which one you're most familiar with using. And sometimes if you haven't used it for a while, it's hard to use. Okay, so now I've got 3 slides, one in PowerPoint, one in Google Slides, and one from Keynote. Is I have the bottom settings on my Zoom, and I'm going to go to the little arrow, up arrow, next to the video, okay? And that pops up the video button. And it pops up the option, choose virtual background, okay? And that's what you want to select. And it pops up a little window here. You should see the window with me in it talking, and you should see some virtual backgrounds I've already had installed here, and some that are standard with Zoom. Okay, now if you don't see the option for virtual backgrounds, it could be that your computer is not fast enough to run a virtual background. Okay, so that could be an issue. Okay, so you don't need to click on anything else, but we want to click on the plus arrow that says add an image or video. If we click on that, we're going to add image. What this does is it then brings up your files on your computer. So anywhere you have an image or graphic or JPEG file, you can use. So I put these on my desktop so I could find them. Okay, so here's my Google slide background. Okay, I'll try that one first. Voila, the mountains in the back, right? And there's the text. This is my custom background. This is now available to me anytime I want to select this virtual background. And I can switch. I can go back to this one, or I can go back to this one. They're all in my library here to be able to use. And if I go to the video icon and I go to choose virtual background, I go to plus, add image, and now I want to select my PowerPoint virtual background. It got saved here in a little folder. So I select that and I just click open, and there's my PowerPoint virtual background. Now, here's an example of where a really, really light color background might make it more difficult for you to stand out. And I can see that in the slide, I might want to make my logo a little smaller because it's covering up, but I'll be in front of it no matter what. But you can see the text I added, and you could put it along the whole bottom or in the corners. But that's why I say plan for space for yourself to show up. So if I switch to a office picture, it's me. You could use any type of image you want that's legal to use. And there's a lot of free sources out there. This is my family's, farm in Iowa, so you can change things whatever you want to. I was taking pictures of the Port of Long Beach. They're all available to you, and you don't have, I don't know how many backgrounds it will store, but if I change around backgrounds a little bit, you can, if you get fancy, you know how they have some standard videos, but I downloaded a video background the other day. And so you can have videos going on as your virtual background as well. So that's a little bit of how to create and do custom Zoom backgrounds in Zoom, right? And using slides or just using photos. Now, obviously, if you want to add text or add your logo, just open it up in Google Slides or Google PowerPoint or Apple Keynote, and you can modify it and change it and edit it and add even shapes and objects to it as well. But that's a little more about PowerPoint and the slide presentation tools. So hopefully we started with a slide application. We created, we found an image to use as a background. We added some text. We downloaded it or saved it or exported it as a JPEG file. And then from Zoom in our virtual background tool, we opened it up and we added that image to our selection of virtual backgrounds. It makes it's easy. I mean, I know it's not easy for everyone, but if you don't use these tools often or frequently, it might be a little bit confusing, but we'll have this, recording, and the steps are not that easy. Try doing it with a photo first. If you find a photo on a site like Pexels or others or Pixabay or something else, and then try using a slide present. But for those of you that are trying to promote your brand, or you want to do a happy birthday theme or a holiday or a party theme or something else, you can actually communicate a lot in that virtual background that you might have available all the time, because that's what people are looking at behind you all the time, and they will be seeing you in that virtual background. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. Bye bye, and have a good day.
Thank you.